everybody. So today we're going to continue on with part 2 of the GC and people that have beliefs. Well, everybody has beliefs, but these people are kind of known for their beliefs and their truth in some way. Again, let me go over the parameters one more time for what I was looking at when I did this. And in the first video I mentioned, I talked about Joseph Smith, Warren Jeffs, and Kim Tu-sung. I probably am pronouncing that wrong, but yeah, I'm not the greatest at pronouncing things. So let me talk about the parameters for just a second of what I was looking at here. I was looking for people that had their beliefs had or have an influence on over 1,000 people in some form or fashion. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they had to have 1,000 members. One of these people that I'm about to talk about, well, one of these people I'm about to talk about isn't even a person. It's just the group itself. But one of these other people, I don't believe there was 1,000 members, but their influence, I would think definitely, they definitely influenced over 1,000 people with the bullshit they did. Their beliefs infiltrated other areas of life outside of just them and their adherents. These beliefs didn't only have to be spiritual and religious in nature, but any kind of belief was up for grabs: religious, spiritual, philosophical, political, etc. Anything in those, any sort of belief or truth was kind of up for grabs here. But I will say, because of the parameters that I was looking at, people like Charles Manson or David Koresh, or even somebody like Jim Jones, they're kind of, I didn't include them because they didn't have as many followers in the big scheme of things. And they did infiltrate other areas of life and like pop culture, but not in the same way that these people did. Pop culture, when I say it, there's a difference. To me, in my mind, there's a difference between like people like them and these people that infiltrated greater areas of, you know, the span was greater that they influenced. So those are my parameters. If y'all can think of anybody else that might fit that, let me know. I'll take a look. I'm still looking into this stuff myself. Just make sure if you're thinking of a group, because there's some groups that I would love to do. Make sure you actually have at least a date. Some groups that I'd like to do, there's no date for when they actually were created. So that makes it hard to do this. There are a couple off the top of my head that I can think of that I wanted to include, that I wanted to look at, and I couldn't because all I had was a year. I had no date that this group was created, that these groups were created. So anyway, I don't have to have a time. I don't have to have a time. I can work without a time. I prefer a time, but I can work without a time, but I do have to have a solid date. Okay, and also I want to start out with my disclaimer that I am not an expert with the Galactic Center. I have lots of astrological knowledge, but this is one area where I am literally just fucking with astrology. So nobody hold me to any of this. I'm just tossing ideas out there, seeing what fits, seeing what doesn't. And I reserve the right for any and all of this to be, any and or all of this to be wrong later. I do feel like I am on a track. I will say that. I'm not saying that I'm right, but I do feel like I'm on a track. A track. So anyway, without further ado, we'll start with Keith Raniere. I might be pronouncing that wrong too. I'm really shitty with pronunciation. He is the leader of the NXIVM cult. I believe that's how it's pronounced. This is his chart. As you can see, he has Jupiter conjunct the Galactic Center. Mars is close, but it's not Mars is a little too far out of orb with the galactic anticenter, so I wouldn't count it here. It's close, but it's not. It's a little beyond the window that I would look at. He does not have Jupiter retrograde, thank God. And he has, let's see here. He has Uranus and Mercury, the Sun and Pluto up here, trine the GC. Now, he has the galactic center contact to make an impact with his beliefs, right? It's an amplifier for them, which feels even stronger, you know, when you've got Jupiter conjunct the GC. That makes me feel like the amplifier is even more amplified because we're talking about Jupiter here, right? Jupiter is also beliefs and truth. He has all of those trines. Like, there's a lot of things trine there, which makes me think, it makes me think when I see, and I'll say this, when I see multiple trines to the GC, it makes me feel like the person could have gone multiple ways with the way they brought their shit, their beliefs and shit down to earth. He chose a shit way to do it. But it does make me think that there are like multiple avenues that he could have taken to translate, and he chose a shit way to do it. Exactly which one of those he went with, I don't know, but it does exactly what. I'd have to sit and think about that for a second, but I do feel like he had multiple avenues that he could have taken, and he chose not to. He chose to go the way that he went. He does not have Jupiter retrograde, which he is not protected, as far as I'm concerned. He doesn't have that protection. Thank fucking God, because he is in prison now. I believe, what did he get? I think he got, let me see, I have it in my blog post. He got 120 years in prison, so he's not getting out. He shouldn't get out anyway. It'd be stupid to let him out. Let me see. He didn't have, no, he was one that didn't have any out of bounds planets. The one planet that was very close to being out of bounds, though, was Jupiter. All the other ones had a much lower declination. Jupiter's was at 23, God, it was at 23 something, right? It was close to being out of bounds, but it's not. So yeah, there's his stuff. Now, okay, now we're gonna talk about L. Ron Hubbard, who is the founder of the Church of Scientology. Okay, this is his chart. This guy was really something else, as far as I'm concerned. I'll have the link about him, like, to his Wikipedia in my blog post if you want to read more about, because this guy seemed like he was all over the fucking place, really. Okay, so he has, and we have a good time of birth on file for him. So he has his ascendant conjunct the galactic center. Pluto is opposite. Pluto and the descendant are opposite the GC, conjunct the anticenter, which also makes the Pluto polarity point in his chart conjunct the GC, like within a degree. You also have Jupiter is retrograde in this dude's chart. And let's see here. He has his moon. He has his Venus, and he has his Saturn, all trine the GC within the window of orb that I'm looking at. So, so he had, I think he was probably in tune with the GC. He probably was, by nature of having the ascendant there. With the Pluto polarity point also being there, and the Pluto polarity point kind of functioning like similarly to the North Node, not the exact same, but similar. It makes me think that while he was in tune with the GC, he wasn't totally familiar with it, perhaps in the way that he wanted to grow into being. Does that kind of make sense? That's kind of how I read that. Or I'm thinking that's what might have happened here. He has multiple trines, which makes me think that he had multiple ways of bringing this GC stuff down to earth. And he actually did. I mean, he started Dianetics, and then he lost the rights to that through bankruptcy. And that's when he started the Church of Scientology. So in a way, he did kind of bring his shit down to earth in different ways. Now, he was involved in a lot of controversies, a whole bunch. He was involved in something called Operation Snow White, which, I'm sorry, it's not funny, but it kind of is. It was the Church of Scientology going after files that the U.S. government had on the Church of Scientology that were not favorable and trying to get a hold of those files, which is like I don't know, it's like a goofy ass conspiracy as far as I'm concerned, but you know, I could see it happening. He was involved in that. Even though it was probably his idea to do that, he wasn't even indicted on anything for that. I think his wife was, and some other people, but somehow he evaded being charged with anything for this, which I think is interesting, right? He also faced some charges for fraud and I think petty theft in France that had to do with the Church of Scientology in France. He was in absentia. He was tried, and he got 4 years in prison, and had to pay a fine. Neither of which he ever did. So I think it's interesting, right? And there are other controversies. I suggest you look at his shit because there's so much shit, and like this dude was like up to a lot of shit, and I just think it's interesting that there were so many controversies surrounding him, even legal things, and he never paid for anything. He somehow got out of it, or didn't have to do time, or somehow it worked out for him. I think that's Jupiter retrograde. I really do. As annoying as that might be, I think it probably is. But yeah, that dude, definitely recommend you look into him if you're not familiar, because all of that is very interesting. I think it's interesting. It's weird. Yeah. And let me see. He did have something out of bounds. Let me see. I believe he did. Let me see. Shit. I'm not sure if I wrote it down. He did have something out of bounds, though. I need to go back and put that on the blog post, I guess. He did have something out of bounds. He did. I just don't remember what right now. Anyway. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is the KKK. Those dickheads. Now, the Klan was created... This group was created on December 24th, 1865 in Pulaski, Tennessee. It was created by 6 people. Rather than pulling each person's chart, and to be fair, some of these people, there's not even a time of birth, or not time of birth, there's not even a date of birth for them. So I figured the best way to do this was to just look at when this group was created, because I mean, they have their beliefs and they're so fucking warped that it feels like it could be it felt to me like it could be a galactic center kind of thing, but swinging in the bad direction, right? So here's the chart for this, for when it was created. So when it was created, you have Venus and Mars and Mercury and the Sun conjunct the galactic center. Jupiter is very close, but it is out of orb. Since the galactic center, on December 24th of 1865, the galactic center was at 24 degrees something Sagittarius. So they've got all those conjunctions. Uranus is opposite the GC or conjunct the anticenter. And you also have, okay, you have the south node is trine the GC. So you have all those things going on. And the ruler of the south node, like I think I've mentioned before, that like if the trine is like is something that's not an actual planet, there might be a harder translation. But in the case here, and this could actually translate to a harder translation too. But the reason why I'm more inclined to call it a good trine is because the ruler of the south node, Mars, actually is involved with the conjunction with the galactic center. So it feels like it might have more weight than if Mars wasn't conjunct with the galactic center. It feels like it might anyway. So, in saying that, and Mercury's retrograde, Jupiter is not. Now, that makes me think, especially with Uranus conjunct the anticenter, right? And the anticenter being kind of like a lightning rod, which would make Uranus like a lightning rod in this case. To me, this just, when this group was created, this just feels like lightning striking and warping so many things with what they believe, and their beliefs are fucked. They're fucked. Their beliefs are fucked. I'm not afraid to say it, and I think they're fucked. They're totally fucked. They're not protected. They don't have the protection from Jupiter retrograde, thank God. They have actually disbanded multiple times, right? The original creation of it was in 1865, and I think the other one was like in the 19 teens, and then the other one was in the 1960s, I believe. I could be wrong about that, about the history, but they've disbanded and come back together 3 times. And they're in their 3rd incarnation right now, essentially. Even so, though, I wanted to start with the original creation of it, not any of the other ones, but the original creation. Because this is when these ideas were originally created into a group idea, a group mentality. And actually, it's interesting, Uranus being opposite the GC here, it is kind of interesting. Since Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius, so we've got like the group influence here. We do. But it's like the group is just getting shocked with shit, if you will. Blinded, perhaps, by what's actually true. That seems like that could be a real possibility here. Obviously, this is the case. I may not be saying it totally correctly, but it is kind of the case. I'm really glad that when I pulled this chart that I didn't see Jupiter retrograde, because the Jupiter retrograde thing to me would have, well, quite honestly, it might have confused me, because this group has disbanded and then come back together, and disbanded and come back together, right? It hasn't been a consistent thing as far as I know throughout from then till present. But so it would have maybe confused me a little bit, but it also makes me think that at some point in time maybe they will disband for good and fuck off and get hobbies and do something else that's positive with their time. But that might just be me hoping. But anyway, so I'm gonna get going, but I wanted to put this out there in video form. Check out the blog post. I'll put the link But the link below, Instagram's kind of fucking weird, so you might have to actually copy and paste it, or even actually type it in. Sometimes you can't copy and paste from Instagram. I'm not really sure why they're like that. If you're watching this on YouTube, though, you should just be able to click the link and go straight to it. But anyway, if you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck With Astrology. I'm at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Paternal Astrology on Instagram. If you want to like or subscribe to us or whatever on YouTube, search for us by searching for Let's Fuck With Astrology. If you do the right thing, come join us on the subreddit, Let's Fuck With Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.